Now we are going to see about this peripheral joint mobilization on elbow and wrist complex. Mostly like after fractures, right? Fracture immobilization, the stiffness around this elbow and wrist joint is very common. Okay, so these techniques are very useful whenever we are going to treat this fracture and this kind of stiffness, joint stiffness related to this elbow, and why the main reason. The main reason behind this stiffness in the wrist and small joints are like swelling. Here, the wherever the problem is, maybe shoulder joint, elbow joint, or somewhere else, the swelling would be in the distal aspect, right, in the wrist and hand region. That is also main reason that movement is restricted, and adhesion formation is also develops very quickly. So you can expect loss of movement and loss of joint mobility is very high in the distal region. So we need to be very thorough with this distal joints, that is elbow, wrist, and hand complex. Okay, so we already discussed about this two joints in the elbow joint, right? Humero-ulnar, that is in the medial aspect, and other one is humero-radial, that is in the in line with the thumb. Okay, that is a very important clue that you have. Sometimes we get confused whenever it is supinated or pronated. You don't know which one is radius and which one is ulnar. So everything is different. The resting position is different. The technique is different, right? So you need to follow that. Whether you are doing humero-ulnar or humero-radial. So how we can differentiate which one is affected, because elbow flexion and extension, both radius and ulnar is in the distal aspect, right? So you can check it with supination and pronation. The supination and pronation is purely comes from radius, right? So that the spinning action of the radius only causes supination and pronation. So if there is restriction of that also, then we can come to know that this problem, like the elbow flexion and extension, as more influenced by your radius, the mobility of the radius or restriction of the radius as the main role. So you need to give more importance to mobilizing the humero-radial, okay, humero-radial joint mobilization. Okay, so last class itself we have seen this distraction, and one more thing is scooping technique. To increase flexion, you need to have, after distraction, you need to give some kind of distal glide. So when you see it in the patient's view or anatomical point of patient, then it is a distal glide. Otherwise, if you are seeing it from your point of view, then it comes as a upward movement. Okay, after distraction, you are giving some towards you or upwards kind of movement. Okay, so it varies. Sometimes we are talking in view with the patient, or sometimes we are observing it in our aspect. Okay, sometimes that is the reason you may get confused. Otherwise, just see the direction. If you look into it, it is very clear what is the technique you are going to apply for humero-ulnar distal glide. So one more thing is, whenever we are doing humero-ulnar glides, your other aspect, that is humero-radial, should be mobilized, should be stabilized. Sorry. Okay, so why we need to stabilize means because the resting position is different for both the joints. Okay, so when you are doing a humero-ulnar glide, that time it is causing friction on your humero-radial joint. That is the reason. One aspect, that is in the lateral aspect, you need to stabilize. Okay. So the main role is the supination pronation is commonly affected. So we are giving more importance to humero-radial aspect compared to humero-ulnar. You can give it. It is not it is not bad thing that we are giving glide to humero-ulnar aspect. We have to give, but the supination pronation part has a more influence on their daily activity. The patient may complain that for just you understand the importance of supination and pronation. Without that, all the daily activities involved with your hand is restricted. Like whenever we insert a key into the lock, can you see? Without supination pronation, you cannot produce locking and unlocking. I'm telling you a few examples. Without that, you cannot create a useful coordinated movements. So that is a main role. So you can concentrate more on humeroradial also. So here I told you already, the resting position for humeroradial is elbow extended, forearm is supinated to the end of the whatever range available, you can go to that point. That is the humeroradial resting position. But if you see that humeroulnar, it is elbow flexed 70 degree and forearm is supinated only 10 degree. That is the resting position you can follow. Okay, that is the main difference. So here flexed 70 degree and forearm is supinated 10 degrees, right? So for humeroradial, it is fully extended, and then your full supination also. And just what I'm saying is everything is the same. The technique, all the things are same. Only thing you need to know is the resting position and the treatment plane, and then whether it is concave and convex. Okay, if you are very clear about each and every joints, these details, then we won't worry about anything. Simple. The techniques are simple. Some changes or some important things in each and every joint we need to understand. After that, everything is more or less same. Okay, so this is humeroradial dorsal and polar glides. Dorsal glide is to increase, so it's simple. It's a concave is moving. Concave is moving, that is the radius and ulnar, head of ulnar, head of radius and the olecranon fossa of the ulna, everything is concave. So we are just simply dorsal glide to increase elbow extension and volar glide to increase flexion. Simple, right? So one more thing is whenever we are doing humeroradial dorsal and volar glides, what you have to do, stabilize the medial aspect, that is humero-ulnar aspect. You need to stabilize that, and then you give dorsal glide, means you push downwards towards the couch. That is what dorsal glide. And ventral glide means you have to use your fingers and push it up, pull it upward. Okay, so your head of the radius should be pulled upwards, then it will give you volar glide. So volar glide to improve elbow flexion. Okay, either way, supine or sitting by the side of the couch also is a convenient one. So sometimes the pulling force, maybe restriction is severe, means you maybe turn other side, thereby the ventral glide should be pushed with the with your palm. Okay, if you reverse it, and use this hand for stabilization, you turn this way. Okay, you stand here, you stand on the lateral aspect of the patient, means you can change your hand placement, thereby the ventral glide shouldn't be pulled up, you can push it. Okay, it's our convenience that if it is the more stiffness is there and pulling is more straining or more painful or tiring to you, means we can change it to pushing type of movements. That's what if stronger force is needed for the volar glide, realign your body and push with your base of your hand. How we do that dorsal glide, like that you can do volar glide. Okay, everything, if it is not clear also, we will have a video demonstration. In that thing, you can come to know what I'm saying. After that, sometimes humeral radius, the head of the radius may be pulled out of the segment. So in that case, we are doing compression. Okay, after twisting or after supination, and you are giving compression. Okay, and during that time, your elbow should be flexed 90 degree. So other hand should be like stabilize the elbow joint. So use your left hand for stabilizing the elbow, and then use your, for example, it's right hand means radio ulnar joint. Okay, so if you want to get more details, I will give it like a video demonstration of how to reduce the pulled elbow. Pulled elbow is a very common problem in children's, right? So when we go into upper limb fracture and dislocation, during that time, I will give you a that the reduction technique. It is same how we reduce the pulled elbow. Reducing means we realign the bone into that original position. That's what we are doing. So during that time, I will demonstrate this technique. And then the proximal radio-ulnar joint. So the proximal radio-ulnar joint and distal radio-ulnar joint are mainly useful for supination and pronation, because the radius is spinned inward or overlaps on ulna, then we call it supination. And then if the radius and ulna is parallel to each other, then we call it pronation. Right? This is one of the very useful movements we have. Without that, any hand movements are not that perfect. Okay, so now we are going to see what is that articular surface, shape of the articular surface, the convex rim of the radial head. Okay, so it's convex is moving, and then the concave radial notch on the ulna is the fixed one. Only the radius is moving. So the convex is moving means now we are clear that rolling and gliding is in the opposite direction. Okay, so here you can see the resting position for doing supination and pronation. Elbow is also like humeroulnar. How we do like that? You can here you can do elbow is flexed 70 degree and forearm is supinated more than 10 degrees. Like 10 degree means slightly supinate. Here you can increase to few degrees. So supinated 35 degree, that is our resting position. When it is like whenever you are starting the technique, or whenever it is too painful, then you can start it in this position. And we all know that treatment plane is in the whichever it is concave. That is what we call the treatment plane. So here the radial notch of the ulna is considered as a treatment plane. And one more thing where we need to stabilize means the proximal ulna is stabilized. That is what in that aspect only your radius is spinning, right? So we need to stabilize that proximal segment. Okay. After that, here we are coming to, can you see that it is 35 degrees supinated and elbow flexed to 70 degree. If you place it in that resting position, it would become like this. Okay. So after that, so here you can see dorsal glide to increase pronation. Okay, the volar glide to increase supination. Okay. So always, if you are moving anteriorly, if you are gliding anteriorly, that will cause supination. And if you glide it towards you, okay, so if you're pushing it towards him, means it's a volar glide. That is useful for supination. Okay. So towards you is actually a dorsal glide, and towards the patient is increases the supination. Okay, so if it is not pulling force is not convenient, means change your position. Change your position so you can stand here. And then push it. Okay, and one more thing is your one hand is stabilized on the proximal ulna. Okay, the proximal ulnar should be stabilized with your right hand, and then using your left hand, you will give this glides. Okay, and one more thing, ask the patient to support the distal aspect. Wrist and hand shouldn't be mobilized. So otherwise it will be like, it causes unnecessary pain on the distal prominent segments, maybe NCP joint or everything may be like rotated, and it may produce pain also, and it doesn't produce effective technique on your proximal radial. That's why we need to stabilize this. So ask them to support the distal segment, and then you can give the glide. Okay, one important thing is the elbow flexed 70° and forearm supinated 35°. Okay, after that, we all know the progression. How you can do progression means whatever the available limit is, you can go into that. From first day, you are going to do is supinated 35°, flexed 70. After that, whatever the available ranges, you can go to that limit, and then try for olar and dorsal glides. And one more interesting thing is for proximal, is it clear? Can you follow me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the proximal radioulnar surfaces are the radius is convex and ulna is concave. Always remind yourself that ulna is not moving, only radius is moving. Okay, so the proximal segment, once again. Okay, the proximal segment, the convex, the surface of the radius is convex, right? So in the distal aspect, that is the distal radioulnar joint, both are necessary, both are very important for completing the supination and pronation. So in the distal radioulnar joint, you have radius is concave and ulna is convex. So here exactly opposite to that. So rolling and gliding is in the same direction. So dorsal glide to increase supination and olar glide to increase pronation. So in the proximally, if you want to improve pronation, you are giving dorsal glide. But in the distal radioulnar joint, you have to give ventral glide. Okay, to increase pronation, I am telling you dorsal glide in the proximal radioulnar, and in the distal radioulnar, you have to give ventral glide, ventral or volar glide. Okay. So that is a very important detail that for the same improvement in supination and pronation itself, in the proximal radioulnar joint, you have to give different direction, and in the distal most thing, you have to give it in opposite to that. Okay. Because of this direction or the alignment of the joint surface is different, that's why we are changing that. Okay, that's why I told you here the concave surface of the radius, right? So now we can come to know that the glides are equal to rolling. So here the resting position is with forearm supinated 10°. There the forearm is 35° supinated and elbow flexed to 75. But for this joint, you need to place it in the supination 10°. And treatment plane is always the concave surface. So here the concave surface, the radius is going to be the treatment plane. So the stabilization is on distal ulna. How we stabilize it on the proximal ulna? Here we stabilize the distal one. Okay, so always remember that ulna is in line with little finger. Okay, and your radius is in line with the thumb. So that's what I told you. Dorsal glide to increase supination and olar glide to increase pronation. So here also, so sitting is more convenient for whenever we come to the distal joints, sitting is more convenient for us as well as for patient. So sitting with the forearm in the treatment table, begin in the resting position and then progress to end range pronation or supination. So in between this, like for example, day 2, you are giving, maybe you are improving it to like from 20 degrees of supination to, let's say I'm telling you, 20 or 30 degrees. From 30 degree of supination to 50 degrees of supination, you are achieving that means till that next day he is coming, right? So in that 24-hour period, you have to give him some home exercise program to retain that position. Is it clear? If you leave just like that, they may return back like the first day. Okay, so just give them some home exercise program, some stretching technique, some kind of active exercises in such a way that it is retained. Whatever the range we are gaining, that should be retained for the next day. Then only you can improve it like from 40 degree to 90 degree or other ranges, other improved ranges. Otherwise, what we have to do is the same the day before, how it is like 10 degree means the other day you have to come for 35 degree. That you cannot expect an improvement in a quicker period of time. So stabilize the distal ulna. Is it clear? So we have to stabilize it and then give the dorsal and volar glide. And this glides can also be decided, maybe whether we are giving grade 1 oscillation or grade 2 oscillation. Everything is decided by the patient's complaint. Whether it is pain predominant one, then you have to stick on with grade 1 and 2. Okay, and if it is stiffness, mainly stiffness, and the pain he can tolerate or it is not. Okay, so one more very important joint is wrist joint. Most of the forearm fractures or lateral epicondylitis, this kind of thing has influence on wrist joint. So wrist joint has some restrictions on movement. So you can see now the distal rate